Issue 252 Reboot. The whole reason the reboot's annoying is because the comic's pretending to be a canon continuation of Archie Sonic, and they could have easily just started on a clean slate instead of having this arc, the Memories arc, which even Flynn didn't like having to write. Sonic complains about a huge headache on West Side Island, where apparently Mobotropolis has been moved because video games. Okay, if the universe was actually rewritten from the past to the future, then why the hell is Sonic, a denizen of it, still able to remember a past that supposedly never happened now? Which includes remembering worlds collide. I figured I'd run into this plot hole eventually, but not this fast, not by literally the second panel. He only remembers because the audience does, because meta logic. When really, if he's in the reboot zone because existence was rewritten, it'd be because he was rewritten into it, from his past up to now. Really, he shouldn't even be the same Sonic anymore, meaning his memories would be completely different, right from the start. But it gets to working on the logic that Sonic created this universe, so he gets to keep his original memories. Why the hell do they have to taunt us by showing Tails flying up to the Tails doll from issue 247? Like, haha, you don't get to experience the old continuity anymore. Why have a reboot to start out on a clean slate when it's not starting out on a clean slate? This would confuse new readers. And I really hate the design of this Tails doll, because it looks absolutely nothing like the Tails doll. But issue 247 had the same problem. Sonic is asked if he's feeling okay by Tails, and while he remembers that he was just on the Death Egg trying to rescue Sally, Tails doesn't, and says that he came here to follow up on Nicole and save King Acorn, and the Tails doll is already attacking when they arrived. This is a big problem because if you're the unfortunate soul who started out with a reboot and didn't read any of Archie Sonic, then you're gonna start out confused right away because we started out in the middle of the action with this thing attacking, and Sonic is referencing continuity you won't know. It's not starting on a clean slate, the new audience is confused anyways. Tails says that he doesn't know where Amy went, but they haven't seen Silver since they rescued the Wisps, which apparently happened recently. So it's the Colors DS story they're referencing then, because Silver was in that game. Sonic's naturally as confused as the audience. I'm interested in this new continuity he's referencing, but it's very sloppy to have it be referenced without being shown and starting out in the middle of the action. I assumed that it would start out telling us background on the Reboot universe's new history, not start out in the middle of the action with Tails referencing events that we never saw, making us detached and confused. Issue 1 of Archie Sonic never had this problem. Sonic asks if Naugus is involved, being forced to uncharacteristically call him merely Naugus because apparently Ixis is a name they lost the rights to. Naugus sounds stupid. I'm just gonna call him Ixis. And thank God we at least get to see him again. But is he gonna be in the reboot for an extremely tiny amount of time, just because bullshit? Will he be an extremely underutilized character instead of used just as much as Eggman? I'm worried that this will be the case because I haven't heard anything about Ixis being in the reboot. I was worried he was banned from it because maybe Bowlers improperly claimed copyright over a guy who was in Sad AM first. But thank God we get to see him again, even if he's still a bland-ass generic bad guy in personality, complete with his annoying habit of just calling Sonic the Quickster. Seeing him all shadowy from behind just makes me worried that it's a copyright thing and we won't be allowed to see his face. Oh good, that's not the case. Archie Sonic never made me this worried starting out. He complains that Eggman sent his creations after him and now Sonic's shown up too. Then we see Nicole sitting near him with her arms crossed in annoyance. And sure, she has different clothes for no reason, but it's still Lynx with black long hair, and that's kind of confusing that they're still allowed to use her Lynx design when it was introduced by an Archie Sonic writer and artist. And apparently they're ditching everything that every writer aside from Flynn ever introduced, instead of just the one who sued. So you'd think Nicole would lose her Lynx form because Tanya Del Rio owned it. But she gets to keep it because, oh, they changed her clothes. Well, good. Ixis, being inexplicably called Wally in a forced-to-tell joke because he was never called that before, and I'm not accepting that instead of Ixis, so fuck you. Ixis is called out on by Nicole for, the things he did to become king in Archie Sonic. Is it retconned or not? How the fuck would both of them know that, and not just Sonic, when Tails is oblivious? Well, apparently it's because Nicole knows the Archie Sonic continuity, when Tails doesn't. Huh? Creator's pet much? Her memories had passed would have been rewritten just like his were. So does the Archie Sonic continuity still exist in the context of the reboot for them to draw their old memories from? That has to be it. Because it has to have existed in the first place for them to have old memories from it in this universe. How can game purists defend the reboot as, oh, it's a clean slate, there's no more continuity, when it starts out confusing as hell to everyone because it isn't? I have a confused look stuck on my face right now with a cocked eyebrow. What makes this any better than Pender's? Because I haven't felt this confused about a Sonic story in a long time. Ixis says that they wouldn't have this problem if Nicole had made good on her promise. First off, why would he be saying this is why they're having to deal with the Tails doll? Nicole could have stopped the Tails doll by herself if she had been smart enough to just sick her nanites on it to destroy it before it could transform, instead of just standing there like an idiot. That's why they're in this mess, not because she didn't give an evil wizard his powers back. And second, why would she have not made good on her promise earlier? If she was nice enough to have agreed to try to save him from dying of his bullshit wizards in his head causing mutation sickness, you'd think she would have made good on her promise by now. He tells her to finish making the super ring so he can restore his magic. And Nicole says she's not sure if she can, even though she's been an omnipotent goddess who can do things she can't for the whole series. But just now she has limits. So, functionally, what's the difference? What makes the Ring of Acorns better or worse? The Super Ring is just a Ring of Acorns, isn't it? No? Because you can't wish on the Super Ring? Why? It's like a ring that's arbitrarily more powerful than other rings for no reason. For some reason, threatening Nicole when she's the only one who can help him and touching her handhold form gives him visions of another life. Another life, he's saying. Not his life. And those visions show him that he was suffering from a wizard's illness like we know about. Okay, so why the fuck did he need Nicole's help in this universe then, if it wasn't to cure his illness? He needed to get his powers back and that was all? Why? Why make it familiar and then it's not the same thing? That's so off-putting to everyone. It's confusing to the newbies who are being told about a past history with the Reboot universe they haven't seen, and it's confusing to the actual Archie Sonic fans, who recognize the references to the past where he lied and manipulated to get on the throne and wanted Nicole to make good on her promise. Just for it to not be running off Archie Sonic's continuity after all. Then why make it so similar just to be different? The visions scare him so much that he throws Nicole's handhold form. I'm sure she'll be fine no matter what, but that's still pretty tense. And he actually runs away like a coward, saying that he'll let Sonic have this place. Well, I see Flynn's just as good at writing Ixis and Nicole as ever. This is on the same level as Bunny knocking him out in one hit. So, is it really going to be resolved that fast and that lazily? He leaves on his own? Out of cowardice? Come on, doesn't he need to get his powers restored? Why would visions of the life of another person than you, who looks just like you, make you run out of the city you want, instead of just being, oh, that was weird, and moving on? It's almost like you didn't want to bother with him because he's a sad AM character, and he's letting his bias take over his writing. Even though I'm sure a lot of people were disappointed by this, so that's not good writing. Tails and Sonic both spin dash through the Tails doll. And Sonic's confused that the Tails doll is absorbing all the stuff, and for some reason he thinks to ask where the nanites making up the city are. Yeah, why did he even think to ask that? You'd think that the sheer fact that it's absorbing stuff would make him keep on assuming it was absorbing the nanites, because that's what it was doing in Archie Sonic. Sonic says that it doesn't matter how much damage they do because Tails' doll can rebuild himself out of anything. So what's the difference between now and earlier? Tails says they need to find the control gem that lets the Tails doll control machinery and build up its outer shell, just like last time. What? Last time? This is so annoying! The Knuckles comic was never this annoyingly confusing. Why have a reboot just to keep referencing past continuity anyways? And this time it's continuity that nobody saw. Tails' text bubble gets interrupted, so it's obvious that in the next panel he'll get knocked down, and at least he's drawn to look kinda injured for some stakes. He coincidentally is knocked right in front of Nicole, who isn't able to talk to him because she's just buzzing and that's it. Tails still wastes time trying to get information out of her from talking to her anyways, and for no reason, touching her handheld form gives memories of Archie Sonic. Even though we're supposed to believe that the entire multiverse was rewritten from the ground up to be unrecognizable, meaning that those memories would have no reason to be kept anywhere. Unless, of course, Archie Sonic's continuity and therefore the memories still existed somewhere perfectly intact when the rewriting Genesis wave happened. Other than Nicole, of course, because Nicole's part of this universe just as much as anyone else is, so why would she be special? What makes Nicole of the Reboot sound so special that she has these memories? Why show us these memories? Why taunt us like this? That's not easing me into the reboot. It's rubbing salt in the wound. Flynn didn't even like writing this memories arc. Apparently he was forced to do it by meddling executives who had the brain-dead idea that it would ease people into the reboot. Well, according to his word for it. I don't know, maybe he was lying? This isn't a clean slate if I'm confused as hell, and therefore just as attached as I would be if I read 30 issues ahead into any comic book. And for some reason, Tails looks horrified for quite a while after remembering the Archie Sonic continuity. As if we're supposed to believe it was just that horrible and that we're better off without it. And the only reason this makes sense in the universe is that the Mecha Sally arc and Robotnik's legionization and roboticization concepts are just that dark, which they are, and the reboot universe is just that lighthearted, so of course they'll be upset, logically. Tails says that there was another world where their past was different. Again, saying another world, and not our world was changed. At least Sonic doesn't have to deal with the annoying problem of being thought of as having brain damage, remembering stuff that's not real anymore, because now Tails can vouch for him. So that plot thread was wrapped up really fast. I wish that was normal. At least Sonic acknowledges that reality is messed up. Then we see a place called African Plains. For fuck's sake, just call it African at that point. The E instead of an A just makes it harder to tell how you're supposed to pronounce it. Was this what it was called in Unleashed? Or is this Flynn being really lazy and thinking this is enough to differentiate it from the real world? Both ways are lazy. I don't even remember it being called that in Unleashed. I just remember the word Missouri. This isn't creative. We see Eggman coughing from the smoke coming out of a heavily damaged machine, and he trips and complains with his Eggmobile being heavily damaged. And Orbot says that Eggman's the one who flew into the collapsing space-time vortex. So Orbot remembers Archie Sonic just fine despite the past and present being rewritten, which should include his memories. I guess it's all because Eggman him went into a portal. But what I remember from Worlds Collide was that when Sonic did Chaos Control and Eggman fired a laser, and Sonic was too stupid to just teleport away from Eggman with Chaos Control, or teleport Eggman away so that he'd be able to recreate the universe safely, or destroy Eggman's ship, they said the universe didn't look right, and some white light expanded into them. Eggman didn't willingly go into any vortex. Flynn can't even remember the continuity of just one issue ago! Tails is naturally worried that Tails' doll could absorb Nicole, but she says she'll be fine because apparently now she can talk just fine, even if she's stuttering. So, huh? Again, can't remember his own writing. We didn't see Tails try to fix her. What determines whether she's allowed to talk or not? It's interesting to see Nicole damaged for once, but I feel really sorry for her. It's Eggman who deserves to be damaged. He plugs her into Tails' doll, who panics about a virus and Sonic spin dashes, and now all of a sudden he's holding what looks like the actual Tails doll. I guess it was inside of the Tails doll giant's head. There's no reason he could have made a giant Tails doll from Sonic R. You'd think because he's the game writer. And Nicole says that none of its coding got into her. This was really easy. Tails says that now all Sonic has to do is disable the control gem by snapping its antenna, kicking the thing away. Yeah, as opposed to actually destroying it. Way to go, Sonic. You could have prevented Eggman from getting a hold of it again. And it's not like I see Sonic give it to Rotor so he can use it. It's convenient for Sonic that the antenna wasn't made of two tough materials for him to simply snap it. But yeah, while the battle did take a while, that was still disappointingly anticlimactic because the heroes only had to do like one thing. This pales in comparison to how Archie Sonic Online handled it in the actual continuity, where it wasn't just Sonic and Tails, so it was actually interesting to watch, because Big used his fishing rod to get the control gem. That's all I remember happening, but it was still more creative, since when does he use a rod against giant robots? This was so anticlimactic that I don't feel fulfilled. And as if things weren't confusing enough, Sonic says that he remembers new stuff in the Reboot continuity. I thought we were supposed to believe this was Worlds Collide Sonic, and so we'd only have those memories. Which would have made sense, I guess, because, well, again, he didn't walk into a portal to another universe intentionally. It expanded into him, which would mean it assimilated him like everyone else. So if he was rewritten, why did he remember anything from that in the first place instead of always remembering the rewritten past? This has been like garbage. And maybe Flynn knew it because he didn't want to write the memories arc in the first place. But there's no excuse for making this mistake. Sonic shouldn't have remembered anything at all. And even Nicole having those memories for them is fucked up. I'm still waiting for an explanation for that. Nicole being damaged is supposed to justify having no explanation, I guess. And this image is really off-putting. Why did they have to change King Acorn's design? If anything, it kind of looks like Elias. Well, I guess it's pronounced Elias, but who cares? That's probably a name from the Bible. I don't want to acknowledge that. But yeah, why did they have to change King Acorn's design? He was a Sad AM character. This made me think he was Elias at first. He looks ridiculous. We still have it that he trusted Eggman. So, no better than Penders or Sad AM. But now he looks like classic Eggman, even though we see his actual Robotnik design beside him. Tails says that when he remembered that zone he didn't grow up in, Nicole defragmented a little. Why? What's defragmented mean? Is that supposed to be the lame excuse for why now she can talk a little? How does that work? Of course, the lame excuse for why Sonic started out with memories of Archie Sonic was because he was right at the heart of the Genesis wave when Eggman made it collapse. Tails says that with space-time so horribly misshapen, anything is possible. Yeah, anything is possible with shitty writing. I'd like an actual explanation, please. It shouldn't matter how close he was to it, they were still sent to another universe. If anything can happen, it's hard to care what does. This doesn't apply to, like fantasy and sci-fi things happening, because of course, anything is an exaggeration in that case. Anything is possible means there can be so many plot holes, you can't trust the writing to be good, so literally anything can happen. It doesn't have to make sense at all. Even sci-fi and fantasy still relies on its own internal rules, so that it can't get too ridiculous, so you can still trust it. I don't care that space-time was horribly misshapen. That doesn't mean Sonic and Eggman should get special treatment. Nicole says that Ixis had stolen the door-locking stuff from Eggman, with Sonic lampshading that normally Ixis prides himself on his magic. And Nicole says that Ixis lost his powers from the first Genesis wave. The first one made him have the wizard's illness, but it hardly made him powerless, at least. I don't remember that. I just remember him freaking out. I'm still not getting an explanation for why Nicole can spark their memories. By accident, even. That's even more ridiculous. Her being an omnipotent deus ex machina was something I always made fun of in Archie Sonic. It's not a justification. They go open the locked door and free what we're expected to believe is King Acorn, who acts cheerful finally, and puts his hand on Sonic's shoulder, saying he's thankful to be out of the cell. And he asks why they even have that old dungeon. Yeah, why do they? That's what prisons are for. And not a whole prison and the devil's gulag have existed since forever. Why did they have a dungeon in the castle at all? Just because castles tend to have dungeons in them? They never did before. At least I'm getting to see King Acorn happy and healthy again like he should be. But not really, because this guy looks nothing like him. So how is he him? Translation, he's not. This is an alternate universe. He can't possibly biologically be him, because why would the universe having a different past result in him not having white hair, like where you'd expect it to be? Sure, he wasn't tossed into the zone of silence for a long time, but he had white hair before that point. It'd be much less overpowered if, rather than actually rewriting the universe like Eggman thought he did at the start of Worlds Collide, his machine created a different zone and sent him, Wily, Sonic, and friends there, and that was the zone that was rewritten. That would be much simpler and way less overpowered than rewriting all of existence. The king apologizes to Nicole for getting her captured. She was captured? I thought she was with Ixis willingly. I would be much more open-minded to seeing a new continuity if we just started from beginning. And didn't have any references to the past one. It didn't have us asking, wait, that happened? He says that if he hadn't delayed her, her physical form wouldn't have run out. It can run out? I thought she had a proper body finally. And now all of a sudden, Nicole can't talk at all. Why is the king interrupting himself before saying hello? Why did he expect her to interrupt him and get confused that she didn't? Badly written stories deserve to be nitpicked to death. They don't deserve to be given a free pass. Sonic says all ham-fistedly that maybe some good came from this new universe after all, since the king's healthy, not a jerk. I get it. In-universe, this new zone is a better place. But that doesn't mean I don't have the right to be annoyed that the old continuity's not getting new issues anymore. There's a lot of ideas and characters and plot threads that were abandoned, and I doubt anything from the reboot will get better than them. When all it wants to do is be like the games. That's not creative. Anybody could write that. On the bright side, at least we aren't in a game adaptation right now. I thought it'd be an Unleashed adaptation right from the start. We could have had the king be healthy in the non-reboot universe. The king says he can point them in the right direction to get them back with their friends, who they lost contact with, because we need to pad things out as much as possible for the arc. Why can't they call them on cell phones? Even Ken Penders had his first story start out with Sally having a wrist communicator that she could call Sonic on whenever she wanted. It would take 2 seconds! How stupid were they to have never thought of that? Wouldn't Rotor have made them for everybody? The king says that he knows they were all working on a top secret project. Then how is it top secret? And the only communique that he received was from Rotor, and it was highly encrypted. I guess because he's that paranoid that Eggman will intercept it. From the king's place. And Tails says it looks like a set of coordinates. I've never seen the word communique before. And Penders had the exact same problem of having words way too advanced for a kid's comic be said even by characters like Sonic. Sonic said coalescing in Sonic Live, modulate in issue 50, and Knuckles' dad said conduit. At least this is the king, so he's an adult, and I guess he's justified in having a sophisticated vocabulary. But come on, use a word we know! The reboot is supposed to appeal to normal mainstream casuals. Why can't you just say communication instead of being pretentious? That's my point. So anyways, how is a set of coordinates a top secret project for the heroes? Wouldn't the idea of them being able to locate each other from a satellite theirs have been a thing a long time ago? Sure, they don't want Eggman to know where they are. But how paranoid are they? Eggman's not here. Sonic says the tornado is parked at the Royal Airstrip, as opposed to, like, in Tails' workshop. Do they want to be like the games or not? And the king asks them to let him know the moment he's found his daughter. That's what's great about the king as a character. He really loves his daughter. And we barely ever got to see that under Flynn before, because he always wrote him as a sickly old man who wanted to arrest half the city for treason. Which was absolutely nothing like how he ever was before. And that was a very common problem with Flynn. At least now there's an author's saving throw, giving him character derailment. But we didn't need a reboot to do that. We could have just seen him get healed and brought back to normal by a wizard. Like Merlin. who had healing potions and just sat on his ass most of the time, not doing anything with his magic. He was just as bad as the Ancient Walkers. I love this guy as a character so far, but his design sucks. It looks so stupid so far. The eyebrows call their attention to me so much. If he looked like this to be a callback to Elias, then they might as well have just made him look like Elias at that point. They could get away with that. But he doesn't look enough like Elias, so I can't pretend he is. Then we see the Death Egg in the Arctic, because even in the reboot they're too lazy to give the Arctic a unique name. And despite being in the Death Egg, Sally's no longer a robot. Totally a satisfying way to de-roboticize her. Right, guys? Sonic totally earned this. Isn't it bad enough that most of Archie Sonic's victories weren't earned properly? You know, it wouldn't have killed him to just have it so that in the Reboot universe, she was roboticized, and we see how she actually did get de-roboticized in the Reboot universe. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is an alternate universe Sally. Just because they can get memories from Nicole, doesn't mean they're the exact same people from the Prime Zone. It doesn't guarantee that they're the people those memories belong to, because they can still get them. And it's made painfully obvious when they have completely different designs, because the only way they'd have different designs, to the point of their eyes being shaped differently, or at least being bigger, is if they had ever so slightly different DNA. Meaning they're not the same people, apparently. Still likable people, but not the ones we know and love. Like in Rick and Morty, Morty was able to get memories put into him. But the thing is, it's entirely possible that the memories he got in Morty's Mind Blowers were the memories of a previous Morty that he and Rick had replaced from a different universe. And he was still able to get them just fine. Because one of those memories was of him having to flee a dimension again. So there's no way Rick could have brought all of the Mind Blowers from his original universe to every other universe, because we clearly never saw that. So they weren't even Morty's memories to begin with, a lot of them. So how can this not apply to this? But yeah, it's a good design. She has eyes that look just like any other Sonic character in shape, which wasn't necessary. And gloves for some reason, even though I can personally attest that wearing gloves makes it harder to do stuff with your hands. It makes your grip less tight on stuff, and you can't type properly. So she wasn't wearing gloves for a reason. They're impractical. These things are just making her design less unique. What is it with the Sonic characters and wanting to rip off Mickey Mouse by having every character wear gloves? The Freedom Fighters were characters to subvert that, and it was good. But thank God she's got more clothes on now. We could have avoided a lot of worthless nitpicking from haters if she always wore this. It kind of bothers me that she just has to wear a sporty, sports-like pair of shorts though. I always loved it when she wore a dress. But no, she's a tomboy princess. That's why she wears a vest. Clothes don't make a tomboy, you guys. I always thought of Bunny as a tomboy because she has super strength and flaunted it. And she was way more of a fighter than her. But whatever, I guess she can't wear a skirt or dress despite being a princess. And yeah, it would inhibit her ability to be active because it'd be moving all over the place and blocking more of her legs. But since when is Sally active? She's the leader, she's telling people what to do. Since when does she do the fighting and do that much physical activity? There's no point to her trying because she doesn't have special powers. So even though she could be athletic by our standards, does it matter? Why have focus on it? She won't be an athletic character compared to Bunny and Sonic. Why try to have me take her seriously as one? It's like Sonic Boom. It's trying to appeal to a hip young crowd, making her look all sporty, when that was never really her. Since when does she play sports? There were 2 times she played hockey, but she looks like a soccer player here, and since when is that her? She's a princess. And she acts like it. She's uptight and focused on the law and polite and comes from royalty. And yet she's wearing shorts. Wouldn't it look better if she just had long pants instead? This is supposed to be a princess? I would have loved if she wore a tiara all the time at the very least. But no, she's a tomboy apparently. Can't we at least have something pretty looking? Another big problem with her design is, why did they make her head look different? Seriously. This issue is by Ian Flynn and was confusing as fuck. I haven't been this confused since I reviewed early Penders' work. The story starts out with references to Archie Sonic right away because we start out with the Tails doll attacking Mobotropolis, and Ixis is in it with Nicole saying that he lied and manipulated to get the throne, and he's saying that this wouldn't be happening if she made good on her promise. But then we're given references to events that we never got to see, which is confusing and off-putting to everybody, giving off the same feeling I'd have if I had read ahead in a comic book a dozen issues. This is not a clean slate. So why have a reboot if it's handled so sloppily? Why is Sonic remembering the past right away, just because he was close to the white flash of light when it started going towards him? That shouldn't matter. What makes him and Nicole and Eggman any different? Just because Nicole is damaged, she can't tell us how she can trigger memories in people from a completely different, unrelated universe that has to have still existed past worlds collide for her to spark them from when she grew up in a different zone. So she's a different Nicole. And it's obvious by her new clothes. How would she trigger the memories by accident? According to Flynn, he was forced by meddling executives to write this memories arc in the first place. But that doesn't mean I won't call it out for the trash that it is, because there's no justification so far for why Nicole can spark these memories. How didn't she do this earlier if the past was rewritten? What took so long? Nothing makes sense. Except the Tails doll being defeated by Nicole, because it makes sense that she could paralyze it like a virus. I was always asking the actual version of this fight why Nicole didn't use her nanite bullshit powers to defeat the Tails doll, because she's the master of her own domain and she wasn't doing anything. But either way, this fight was solved in just 2 attacks, so it's pathetically anticlimactic, so it wasn't fulfilling. I'd rather see Big get his control gem by using his fishing rod, because that was creative and took advantage of a character we didn't expect to be useful. I'm fine with starting over with a new continuity as long as that continuity turns out to be good, but the reboot pisses me off because it doesn't start out on a clean slate. It taunts you. It mocks the longtime fans having these enticing images of the old continuity, and then never properly resolving the plot threads it's referencing. The executives thought these memories would help you believe these were the same people, but why the fuck would they think that's necessary? I'd be perfectly fine with getting invested in and liking brand new versions of the main characters. Just because they can get given memories doesn't mean those memories have to be theirs. Why would it even be possible to spark old memories at all in people who've grown up in a new universe, which would give them no familiarity with the old one, and therefore there's no memories to spark? So it can't be sparking memories they still have. How can they have old memories and new memories? I don't think even Penders' stories have me reviewing them with a confused and worried expression the whole time. I guess the most confusing one for me was Sonic Live's first story. That was the most confusing story he ever wrote because it was too meta. This is just one story whose entire foundation rests on Nicole being a deus ex machina. It would have actually made a bit more sense if it was Ixis, because he's a wizard who has new powers as the plot demands, but even then it wouldn't make sense because how did she accidentally spark memories? He would have had to have done that by accident because he had no reason to think there was a past universe that memories could be sparked of. So it would have to be sparked by accident, and there's no reason it would be. I loved a few things about it. I loved the fact that they had the guts to get Nicole get damaged for once as genuine consequences to Ixis throwing her, instead of patronizing the audience. And I loved that the King was re-railed back to being the likable character he used to be before Flynn ruined him. At least Nicole was useful in taking down the Tails doll. But that's all the compliments I can give. This was so confusing and off-putting. If they had just started out from a clean slate and had no references to Archie Sonic, because of those compliments, I would have been fine. I would have been able to get invested in the new world that has nothing to do with the old one. Almost every other continuity of Sonic has started out from a clean slate just fine, and therefore had a much better first impression than this. This is the worst first impression that any continuity of Sonic has had. This is just confusing to both new and old readers alike. And this is why the Genesis Wave is the worst concept Archie ever had. It didn't need to happen. The first issue of a brand new continuity should never be referencing past events we didn't get to see, one of which requires you to be familiar with a completely different continuity just to get it. This is supposed to be a good starting point? This is confusing as hell. I was pumped to see Ixis again. But he just ran out of the city because he was scared of the visions, and that's so stupid. That's the laziest excuse to get rid of him ever. Why have the Genesis Wave remove his powers? That was the whole appeal to his character, because it's certainly not his personality. He better get them back after the Memories arc is done at least. Otherwise, why write him just to write him so off? This isn't Ixis to me. It goes without saying that he's not supposed to be a bad comedy character. But at least he's in the reboot. But if you're so bored by a bland bad guy when writing him, the solution isn't just to spitefully parody him. It's to make him a deeper character, to actually improve on him. Because then he's interesting. And this isn't a fanfiction where you get complaints about being OC. So Flynn should have had the creative freedom to give him new personality traits all he wanted. Especially since it's the brand new universe. So it's a brand new Ixis. Whatever. I'm interested in this continuity, and I'm sure it has tons of good stories, and so far it's not too much like the games, because this whole story took place in Mobotropolis. Even if it just has to be on West Side Island, because Sonic 2 existed. That was kind of embarrassing. But that was somehow an even worse first impression than I expected. I assumed we'd know why Nicole can spark these memories right away. That's the cheapest way to get you to buy the new issues, to have a fundamental plot hole filled that should have been filled from the start. That's just frustrating, and the start of Archie Sonic didn't do that. It started out episodic, and there's nothing wrong with that. It even explained the past before Mobotropolis was invaded by Robotnik in the first issue. I had an easier time getting invested in almost every other continuity of Sonic. At that point, it really is better to just start out with the old continuity.